everybody, I hope you guys are having a good New Year's for 2026. Last year was kind of a difficult year for me with regards to the shutdown affecting my area with a large number of federal employees. But here are some photographs of what I did for last year. I actually had a overall good year. It was definitely late, and also the weather has been really affecting my business last year. So I'm gonna have to try to change up my strategy a little bit to figure out what I could do to get some maybe some indoor events to where my business isn't affected. But that first event was actually a outdoor concert that I did that I had a really good success in. This year I started with new flavors, and I actually came out with a Nashville Red Hot Sauce pork rinds. I actually sold over 850 pounds of pork rinds last year. This year is a catering event that I did for Erickson Senior Living. I've actually done a lot of events with them. I do about 4 a year or so with them. This year was an employee appreciation day where I got 500 bags, and we all worked together. I did all the popping. I popped probably about 150 pounds of corn to get that many small bags. I did 500 small bags of popcorn, and it was an over $1,000 job. And here's actually my sheet. One of my best flavors for this season is actually called a sweet cheddar. And so yeah, guys, this is actually. And then also I did a lot of car shows. So here's actually a car show that I did for a park, and I actually got a great turnout. I did it somewhere between $300 and $500, and had probably a $50 vendor fee. So this year, one of the drawbacks is I'm going to probably raise my prices to $10 a bag, also to maybe 2 for 18 and 3 for 25. And since I did that with mostly my events, I had nobody complain. But with these events, I'm going to probably try to figure out also a way to have 2 setups. But my goal this year is to actually get my kettle clean. I have a friend of mine who's going to clean my kettle for $300. Plus, he would probably help me do it with electricity. So I'm going to try to look for a production place still. This guy actually traded me a pizza for my stuff here. But this is what my front looks like. So my goal is to actually make my back a little bit more organized. As you can see here in my booth up front, this is actually my market in Columbia. So last year I sold about 4,000 to 4,500 bags in about 7 months. I do the mediums of popcorn only, and I do the smalls of pork rinds. And so here I think I'm going to try to figure out maybe how to make my side view a little bit more professional looking. Also with me getting my kettle clean, the other thing that I need to do is probably definitely get my sifter fixed. My sifter is actually kind of breaking apart a little bit. Here is actually the Townsend Farmers Market that I do. And it's actually another market that I do that's pretty good. So I actually do 4 farmers markets in a week, and then I'm going to be trying to do 7. And I also do a lot of school fundraisers. Here's a school fundraiser I did. I was actually by myself. This one, my helper was actually busy. And I have a new helper who's actually and I worked out great this year. Mia has been a great helper, and I pay $20 an hour plus tips and commission. My helper previously left me actually after 2 years of working to go back to the weekends, and so we kind of had a falling out a little bit, but I actually need to probably hire a couple more new people, and so this is what my front looks like. I'm going to probably also definitely do some new signs and try to get maybe my tent. I have a new tent actually for this season, and for next year I'm going to try to get a custom tent as well to where I have my stuff on top of the tent. And so this is actually the Townsend Farmers Market that I do. A lot of people actually come down and buy from office buildings and buy during the day. I do a market on Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday. What I'm also going to do is an online store, guys. So I'm going to have an online ordering process and maybe a local delivery. This is also another great event that I've done. This is Mary's Land Farm. They only ask for me 10% of my sales. I'd like to give a shout out to Brian Pierce, I believe. He's a friend of mine here who follows me, and I actually did a farm a couple years ago where they asked for me 25% of my sales. So what I ended up doing was looking up another farm here in my area, and not only did that, but the farm here is actually 10 minutes away from my house. The farm that wanted 25% of my sales was also an hour drive away. So thanks to Brian again. Shout out to the people here who give me some good advice. I really take it to heart. So my goal this year, I think, is actually to have like my table. You know how I see up in front, where I have my wraparound cloth. Here is actually a train ride that the Mary's Lamb Farm does, to where they can have you show around the whole farm, which is actually really cool. You get to see all the animals and stuff. I actually went on the ride myself, and I just love the farm. They actually only charge 10% of sales. The farm is great. They're very friendly people. The management is amazing. I give out free bags to my fellow employees who actually work there on the farm. I actually have a crush on somebody who works there, but I'm too afraid to ask this person out. But I'm probably gonna lose a few more pounds before I figure out how to date again. So this is actually what the farm looks like, guys, and it's a great turnout. People say that they have a great little layout. The farm that I was at before had no real way for people to sit down, and they just wanted too much money. And I think the prices here are pretty reasonable. I think it's like $10 per entry per adult, and maybe a little bit less for kids. But this is a great little farm. I love these little farms. The only drawback here is that there's a lot of bugs. My helper Mia actually hates bugs. In fact, almost every employee I've had has been either allergic to bees. In fact, I also got stung by a bee last year, 4 times, believe it or not, from the same bee. And then this is also my Columbia market. So, with that being said, the farmers market has been the farm has been great, and this is actually my best market here, Columbia, Maryland. I also did another car show on Saturday. This place is called Love Wins, and I hope to be a vendor with them next year. I actually had a great turnout. I believe I paid $50 a vend. I do, between these events, my goal is to do over 500. If I do over 500 or so dollars in sales for the 5 hours of time, a 5 hour to 6 hours for setups, 4 hours to sell, I do pretty well. And in fact, I usually have vendors who also buy from me. Sometimes they do a pretty good job with competing against other vendors. There's actually a lot of cars here at this one too, so I definitely plan on trying to be a return vendor. I'm going to try to maybe be up front here by where the t-shirts are next time. And so my goal, because last time here I was in the way far back, but this is actually a great little car show, and I actually find a lot of events on Facebook for my business, and I do a lot of events through word of mouth. After doing this now for 7 years, I've actually gone into a lot of events through referrals, and for people who come up to my booth saying, "Hey, I had this event." Now the hard part for me is that I'm gonna have to get a calendar, is to figure out how to not double book and how to divide up between the events that are profitable and not profitable. Here is actually an event I did at a school. I set up all this stuff here. I had over 100 cotton candy. My helper Mia and I did everything, and I was only able to basically pay my helper Mia, and we worked about 3 hours just to get the cotton candy ready. And normally I do very well at the school, but because there was a ice cream person there selling ice cream, I didn't make any money. So the fundraisers usually ask for me about 20% of sales. Other schools don't ask me for anything. They just want me to set up. So I don't know what I'm going to do here going forward. Do I just not go back? But usually for me to even make money, ideally I'd like to have a $200 minimum. 100 for my helper, and then $100 for supplies to buy back. And then if I have anything else after that, to pay my bills and to pay myself, I'd ideally like 300 for even my wage. But it's one of those things where I got to figure out what I got to do to these events where I make no money. I think if I have a $200 minimum and go somewhere else, if I do not have a $200 minimum, I'll go somewhere else. This is actually my white cheddar, my sweet cheddar, and here is one of my best events for the season, guys. This is actually a place called Manor Hill Brewery. They're a very nice family. I actually sell next to them at Frank's Produce and at my Columbia markets on Sunday. That's actually my best market for the year. I have consistent customer base every Sunday. I charge $10 a bag here. Not one person even complains. In fact, here I made everything ahead of time. I really like how my front looks, and across from me is a guy selling ice cream, his own homemade ice cream. Here I sold, and this is actually supposed to rain, so there was not that many people out. This place is usually pretty packed. The guys next to me on the right actually sold hot dogs and hamburgers, and this big fella actually came out. He's like probably 7 feet tall and probably 20 times, or not 20 times, twice as big as I was, and wanted to buy something here. It was actually a garden show where I was with my helper Mia. We did pretty well, and they had vendors on the weekends as well as promoting their anniversary for their garden show. I also get a lot of private events too. So this is actually not a bad year. It just is this very slow start because of the weather. This is what my front looked like for the garden show. My goal is to also make some new signs. I use different sources for signs. I use this website called Build a Sign to make my own signs. These signs are probably definitely had its day. They look like they've been either eaten or attacked by bears, as I say. So I'm definitely going to get some new signs made. Here is actually my other biggest event. It's called Stevens Bellows Elementary. I have a line of people the entire time, and I have 3 people helping me, except I'm probably just going to do 2 people helping me because I don't need that many people, but the extra help was actually kind of nice. The person who I hired for the third person wasn't really following directions, so I think going forward, I'm just going to stick to my main helper, who's been my best helper so far for the most part. And if you see here, there's a line of people the entire time. I actually give 20% of my sales back. I made $1,200 or so in sales within 2 hours, guys. I made $1,200 in 2 hours. And beside that, I had just enough time to walk around and make a recording of the video here. In fact, here actually is where I learned what 6-7 actually. I'm not even quite sure what it means, other than the fact that I saw it here for the first time, and also South Park did an episode on it. But beyond that, I still am not entirely sure what 6-7 means. And what's funny is these rap songs, these kids are singing these rap songs. But here's a huge line of people for Halloween, and it's a great time. I sold a lot of bags for this event here, and gave the principal $200 of my sales. And we actually worked out very well together. And she always makes sure to put me in a really good spot to where people could see me. I never have to worry about competition. So that's one of the things that's been really hard with these school events is double booking and making sure that, because I have 2 or 3 people wanting me at all different kind of places, and making sure I get the most, because at this point, I got to make money for myself. I don't mind being charitable, but at some point it's like I got to make sure and take care of myself first as a business owner, right? We all got to make money to support ourselves. This is actually how I support myself. This is actually one of my next biggest events here. This is a place called Erickson Senior Living. They actually had a full-on DJ here. This is a great event. I probably did about $1,000 plus here at this event. I have a religious following here, and they actually charge me nothing to set up. I get there early. I've actually had the whole table fully stocked before and still sold out. So I think next year I'm going to probably get there even earlier. My other thought process is, here's this poor person next to me on the left here, walking these animals here and actually cleaning up after the animals. So actually, at the end of the day, with me making popcorn, I'm so thankful that I'm my own boss making popcorn. And here they're actually a DJ. They have a DJ here with a full band. In fact, these guys are a 2-piece band, and they have a drummer, and it sounds like a full-on orchestra with the way their setup is. And later out throughout the day, they had a full people dancing. They also had food trucks, and they had a huge line here to the right of actually people face painting guys. So with this company here, I've actually started just doing one event, this event here. And as I've gotten to know them, they've hired me now 4 different times. So I've actually been expanding that in a sense. And so with my website, I'm going to try to figure out a way, how to do some more of these events. I don't know. What do you guys do on that end? So that's one thing that I want to learn about. So maybe I think about going back to school. So maybe, I get some sample bags together and go to these senior homes and say, hey, do you guys have any community events I can be a part of to learn how to, to maybe have a popcorn day? So maybe my thought process is even bringing some sample bags to senior home and saying, hey, I'm down to even do my first event for you guys free to have a popcorn day. So there's all these certain ideas that I have. I just got to figure out how to overcome my social anxiety with this. With me being a disabled business owner, I really appreciate all these people who go out of their way to get to know me and to support me in my business, because it's really seeing in my lens throughout somebody who's normal versus somebody who has social anxiety. Doing this really takes a lot more work and a lot more energy. But I am a people person, believe it or not, and I am as friendly as you hear me now. I actually love talking to people. It's just that with social anxiety, going out of your way to do it, it's really kind of hard for me sometimes, especially when trying to sell yourself. And so my goal next year is actually not that next year, this year, is to actually do retail. So I plan on doing retail and actually having better retail bags this year. This is actually now back again at Mary's Land Farm. So for Mary's Land Farm, I actually did 2 events, whereas the year before I actually only did 1. So the fact that I've been doing more events really said that my business is doing quite well. I did the Sunflower Fest for them, and I also did the Pumpkin Festival. And then here I do a little event in October for the school in Baltimore, where I serve 800 kids popcorn. And they order, if you see here, we have the bags organized, and they also get free samples. So I serve 500 bags of popcorn, not 500, 50 bags, large bags of popcorn, plus about, 20 or so small bags. And teachers come out and take their bags back to the classrooms. And the principal is actually one of my customers at my markets. So she gives me cash at the end of the day. And it's a great event. So I also have a new tent too as well. So we'll see what my new tent looks like. I usually order from Euromax, but the drop cloth in the front looks great. I think I'm going to actually have the drop cloth go on the side too as well. So with that being said, it's been overall a great year. So I just wish that there was more ways for me to get into school fundraisers for the spring and the summer versus everything in the fall. I have like 20, 30 people or schools all wanting me to do the same events and sometimes back to back, to where I actually had an event this year and I had to unfortunately cancel within short notice. And I feel bad because they probably won't use me again. But at this point, they wanted me there till 3 o'clock, and I couldn't sit there and leave until 3. So with that being said, I couldn't do the second event. So I just don't know. I have to get better at figuring out what to do when people try to buck me, and get better with my calendar system, and do better with organizing which events I need to get into or not to get into. This is again Mary's Land Farm for the Pumpkin Festival. At this point, I'm just pretty thankful that all the bugs here are dead, and it's pretty cold now in Maryland at this time of the year, October, November. And the last few events I did were for a private company. I did here in the Ecology Institute. They ordered 75 bags from me, and I asked them if I could do. Not they just wanted kettle corn. I asked if I could do cheese, caramel corn, and kettle, and they said sure. And I gave out 75 bags of a whole variety all by myself, and they also left me a great review. So I think that once I get my back end professional looking and my kettle cleaned, it's going to be a much better year this year. Hopefully the environment will kick my butt, but I'm also going to do a store online this year, guys. So if you guys want to support me and actually buy some of my products online, I'm going to be able to have deals. I got to figure out how the shipping works and how profitable it is to actually do online, because of how expensive the online process is. And then with retail, my goal is to actually get into some retail outlets to sell maybe 3 or 4 stores. So if there's anyone out there that has retail experience and how to get into retail, I just don't have any experience or any confidence in myself to sit there and tell somebody to try to sell some of my products in the store. I did that once, and the guy wanted 40% of my sales and charged $7 a bag, and they didn't sell very well. So I'm thinking of doing a nice, good sized bag, 1 for 6 or 2 for 10. This is my last event for the season besides Mary's Land Farm. Is Frank's Produce, which is November 9th, and that's another $1,000+ day. So again, with this kind of business, guys, we take the good with the bad. I can for every one event that I do $1,000 or more in, there's probably 2 or 3 or 4 $25 to $50 events where I could have a complete bust. This is another event that I do, a craft show off of Frederick Lane in Catonsville, where I do over $500. I probably did about $700 here. And it was a great turnout. In fact, I cooked the entire time. I bust my butt off in the morning. I didn't stop cooking until about 2 o'clock, and then it ended at 3. So this is pretty much it for the year, guys. And this is my last event for the season. It was at a barn for Christmas time, and I sold next to this guy who sold coffee. So again, guys, I just wanted to say thanks a lot for following and subscribing. This is Schmidty's Kettle Corn. This year is my 8th year in business. As I said, I've sold about 4,500 bags last year, and of popcorn and pork rinds, and this year I sold, this last year I sold about 3,500 containers of cotton candy. So if you have any questions or want any consulting ideas, feel free to reach out. I'd love to do some videos with people who want to network with me in the future, and maybe do some videos on kettle corn. So if you guys have a concession business and maybe want to do some videos, feel free to reach out. Thanks for watching, guys, and subscribing. This is Schmidty's Kettle Corn, and this is the 2025 year in review, and all the events I've done for the year.